Hi, this is Kevin, and we're back with another video on learning Terraform for beginners. So, in my last video, we talked about how to use variables in our resources to kind of clean up our code and not put too much hard coded information in there. But along with that, I want to kind of get more deeper into the code here. We didn't really, right? I haven't really shared any of this as far as on GitHub or in the comments or anything, because it's actually nice to go ahead and like write some of this out to give you an idea on, get you comfortable with writing it out. Kind of getting, basically, like I said, comfortable. There's really not much else to, say from there. So with that being said, as you start to grow and you start to write more complex infrastructure and code, you'll run into maybe having to utilize the same piece of code in other areas and things like that. And it can start to get complex. It can start to get hard to really understand where things are at. Become more risky to update because, one update in one section can cause problems in other parts of the configuration. So with that, that's where modules come in at. So modules essentially allow you to basically share parts of your configuration between projects, teams, and basically you can find that cutting and pasting blocks of configuration between your different projects is error prone. So with using modules, you kind of get out of that. So basically, you may be wondering, what is a module? So basically, a module is just, this here. This is essentially what could be called a module. You can turn this into a module. Someone could utilize it. Say you're building a module for a VPC to be created, and someone could reference your module to do what they need to do without having to write all that code. So it's just a way to kind of reuse configuration, provide consistency, ensure best practices. So if you want to kind of read more on exactly the information on it, like you can go Terraform modules and just go to modules overview here, and it's just going to give you a good kind of understanding on modules, because I can't give you everything, but what I'm going to do is kind of go over how it actually works. And to do that, let's say we're going to build out a VPC in AWS, and we can go to the registry, and we were essentially looking for providers before, and the providers are essentially the APIs that you can tap into to create these things, but the modules are built by either other people who write infrastructure as code, the providers themselves. So if we go back here and look for AWS, and you see under here where it says modules, you can see where it says VPC. You can actually click and see where it says see all. And these are all different modules to do various things. So if you want to create an EC2 instance, there's a module for it. And basically, let's go up to VPC here. So this creates VPC resources on AWS. So if we go into the examples, you can see that there's examples of what, people. So if you want to do like a complete VPC, the only thing you need to do to utilize like this module here is this right here. It shows the source version. There's some outputs, but there's essentially no inputs for this one because it's just an example. But let's return back here. And we're going to go down here. Okay, so if you see, there's some inputs. Now, this module doesn't have any required variables, so you can essentially use it as is. But let's go ahead and utilize this here. So in order to build a VPC, we're going to just copy this, and we're going to utilize this code here. So if you haven't been following along, you can pause and kind of copy what I've had. Basically, we need a folder. You need to go. You can install Terraform. This is going to connect us to our cloud organization. So if you just started on this video, I recommend going back and watching the first couple. They're not too long to kind of get you to this point here. And then, we're going to create a variables file, a main.tf file, and we're also going to create an outputs file. And we haven't talked about outputs yet, but we'll add that here. And these are essentially the three recommended format for Terraform when starting out. So I'm going to go into our main.tf, and essentially let's go in and let's start using this module here. So we got our provider, region, that's okay. Then what we're going to do is it's here, and putting some documentation, some notes in your code also helps well with once other people behind you come and see what you've done, it's easier for them to understand what's going on. So, using VPC module for AWS. You can be more descriptive, so I'm going to copy that in there. And now that we got that, that's would create us a VPC, but we want to actually utilize some of these inputs here. So if we go down, you can see that there's an input for, let's say, availability zone, CIDR, create database internet gateway route. So, typically, instead of actually hard coding all that stuff in here, we're going to still stick with our variables options. So let me go ahead and clear all that out because we're not going to use that. So our variables are going to be set here. So let's go ahead and start setting these up. So we're going to actually use VPC name. So if we go and look for VPC name. So default VPC name. All right. So we're going to create one called variable VPC underscore name. And then that's going to equal, or not equal, but our brackets there, and then description. Like I said, we always want to put a description. So name of VPC. And then the type is going to equal string. And then default, we're just going to put example. Example dash VPC. All right, and then we're going to go into, we're going to create a CIDR. VPC. One second here. Keyboard. Oh, there we go. VPC underscore CIDR. And what we can do actually is copy. And it's going to be VPC underscore CIDR. VPC underscore CIDR. And then CIDR block for VPC. It's going to be string. And let's go 10.0.0.0/16. So that's the CIDR range that's going to be used for this VPC. Then copy here. Let's call this VPC availability zones. And we're going to change this to availability zones for VPC. That's going to be a list string. So we're going to create a list here. And this is like this. And then you got your, we're going to US East 2A, comma, US East 2B, comma, and then US East 2C, there, just like that. So that's another one, and let's close that out. Then we're going to create another variable for our private subnets. So we got our VPC underscore private subnets. And description is going to be private subnets for VPC. And then type is also going to be list string. And then default is going to be 10.0.1.0. And let's go up /24. And 10.0.2.0/24. Okay, so we got that, and now we're going to do our public subnets. So actually, let's copy this. So then copy, then we're going to go 10. Let's just do 101, then 102. Okay, and we're also going to do a NAT gateway. So that's going to allow us to put a NAT gateway in our public subnet. So let's just do that. We'll do VPC enable NAT gateway. And then enable NAT gateway for VPC. And then this is just going to be a Boolean. So this either just needs to be true or false. And then default's going to be true. And then we'll do a one for our tags too. So variable VPC underscore tags. And then let's go here, and then description tags to apply to resources and VPC module. And then type is going to be a map. So we talked about that before. So it's map string, and then default equals key. So it's going to go, let's go Terraform, and then the value is going to be true, and then environment equals dev. And I do like to match these up there, so there you go. So kind of get some formatting going there. It just kind of helps kind of read things a little better. You don't have to get too crazy, but just kind of gives you an idea. We won't go through too much of that. So it kind of match those up there. So now that we got those set up, and then so for our outputs, so we got that all set. Save that. We want to utilize our outputs. So outputs are a way for you to reference configuration from the module, and it'll output that to the screen. So you can actually use those values. So when you're initializing your Terraform code. So if you go into the documentation here on the output side, these are different things that you can grab from this VPC module when it runs. So we're going to actually look for, so if we go, we're going to actually want to pull the public subnets, the IDs of the VPC's public subnets, and the public IP addresses of the EC2 instances. We'll want, so like when you're, say, creating code and you want to know what the public DNS name or something is, this is a way to do it. So in the file, we're going to call an output, and it's going to be VPC. We're going to name it. And then we're going to give it a description equals IDs of the VPC public subnets. and then we're going to give it a value. Now these values, how they're defined is going to be, so how you use this is going to be module.vpc. So module.vpc and then the name. So the name we're going to need is public. If you don't know where you're looking at, just look for, subnet. So we're actually looking for public subnet. So module.vpc dot public underscore subnets. And then we're going to do another output. And this one, we're going to grab the public IPs of the EC2 instances. EC2 underscore instance underscore public IPs. And then same thing here. Description is going to be public IP of both EC2 instances. And then the value is going to be module again dot VPC, or no, module dot EC2 and EC2 instances. Oh yeah, we want instances. So EC2 underscore instances. And let's just double check that. EC2. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I'm going ahead, getting ahead of myself. So we're actually going to be using two modules. We're going to use the EC2 instance module and the public IP module. So let me get that module here set up in here. So EC2, there we go. So let's copy this. And then we're going to put that in our main.tf, and we're going to put this here. And we're just going to copy this here. And then it's also good sometimes even separate some of this stuff. So, if you go section there, maybe a space in between, module, using EC2 module for AWS. Like I said, those can be more descriptive, but kind of give you an idea what's going on here. So let's get rid of all this stuff here. So we got our two modules, and now we're going to go back to the output. So module.ec2 instances, and then we want both. So we're just going to put a asterisk in there. You could do 0 or 1, but, and public IP. And okay, so if we go back, if we go to the outputs here, should see public IP there. So that's how you grab that. So now save that, and now we have essentially our variables set up that we're going to use. Now this is going to get you now, doing this kind of, like I said, decouples you having to hard code a lot of this stuff in there. So now we're going to get into actually inputting all that information inside of there. So now let's go ahead and start doing that. And okay, so starting with our VPC module, we're going to go and essentially create the inputs that are needed. So if you come back to the VPC module, these are going to be all the resources that may get created, customer gateway, subnet, stuff like that, that depending on what you have in your, inputs will create those types of resources. So first things first, we're going to, like we said, we got all our variables set up. So now it's time to add those in. So you need to utilize these particular inputs. And if you notice, the only thing you really have to do now is, like, we're going to go name equals var dot vpc underscore name. So the name is actually going to be VPC name, which is going to be called example VPC. So we go back here, and remember, and that name is in here as well. So if you look at name, let's just go up. Name. So we got name, then we got cider, and that's probably at the top. Let's see up. So cider. So yeah, you're essentially using, and then it also gives you what type these should be. So you got string, boolean, boolean, boolean. That helps you make sure you have the correct type of variables as well. So let's go ahead and start, adding those in. So we got cider is going to be var dot vpc underscore cider, and then az is going to be, and let's kind of keep those in line. So var dot vpc, and then where are we at here? Underscore az, and then private subnets. And like I said, if you don't remember these, just kind of go back and, like you said, these are all in here. So you see private subnets, list string, a list of subnets. So I'm kind of used to building some of these out, so you'll obviously start to be able to get a hang of these as well. So private subnets, and just kind of match that up. And then the same thing, so public underscore subnets equals var dot vpc underscore public subnets. And then we want to make sure we enable underscore NAT gateway, and that's going to be var, we're going to use the default. And then tags, we're going to add a tag. And that's it. That's it for our VPC module. So that is it. Using the module, we're able to utilize the already built Terraform code and just kind of pull straight from it what's going to be needed, instead of actually having to build resource blocks and all that type of stuff yourself. So now let's go down into our EC2 instance. And as you can see, these have versions as well, and then the source. Sources can be pulled from various different areas. So the source could be, local to your PC if you have the variable. Like you can go, the code in another folder. So Terraform source module. Let's see if we can get module sources. So yeah, local paths, you got HTTPS URLs, that's 3 buckets, GitHub. So many different sources that can be listed that allows you to pull information from. So our source is actually Terraform AWS modules, EC2 instance, AWS. So, and these will pull down once we actually initialize this code here. So like we said, let's go down into our EC2 instance. Now we want to create 2 EC2 instances. So the count is going to be, let's say 2. Count equals 2. And then we want to give a name as well to this. In this name, we're just going to call it EC2, let's call it cluster. And then let's go, we need an AMI. Now these we didn't put variables for, but that's okay. We'll go find one. So region is US East 2. So if I go into US East 2, go to EC2 here. Let me go ahead and sign in. All right, and once you're signed in, you'll go over to EC2. instances. Oh man, I got something running here. Yeah, that's fine. I'll destroy that here in a second. But let's go into launch instances. And then we're going to grab this AMI right here. Just going to copy that. AMI is going to be that. Let's bring that back up. And instance type. This type is going to be t2.micro. Instance type can be found here as well. So we're grabbing t2.micro and the AWS module for EC2 instance. Like I said, these doesn't have a lot of inputs. So as you can see, you got instance type here, IP addresses. So not as many as the full VPC, but you can kind of see, get an idea from there. So now let's go into, and then actually I believe this module has no required variable. Okay, so if you ever see that there's required variables, you want to make sure that you actually get those in there as well. So let's go into the instance. We got the instance type. Let's put our double quotes in front of that, and then our VPC security group IDs. Now it's going to be, now this actually, let's see, VPC security. Okay, so it's going to get a list of security group IDs, and that's going to be, we're going to actually use the module .vpc. We're going to use the defaults underscore security group underscore ID. So we're just going to use the default for that, and then subnet ID. That's going to equal, clean these up a little bit here. It's kind of good to keep these things in line, kind of see what's all going on here. So subnet ID, so if we're in our variables here, okay, just checking. So we're actually going to use module .vpc .public underscore subnets, and we want to use the first one. So what we're doing here is module.vpc.public subnets, and for var.vpc.public subnets, if we go into our variables, our public subnets, we're grabbing the first one, right? So it's going to take the subnet ID of that one. Now if we go into, and then let's add some tags in here. Just go down, and then tags, it's going to equal Terraform equals true, and then environment equals dev. So we got that all set up. Let's go ahead and save that. So now that's it. That's all we need to create a VPC with 2 EC2 instances. And let's go ahead and try to initialize this. So Terraform. So as you can see, it's downloading the module for the VPC EC2 instances. And we should see these modules get downloaded here. Let's see what we got here. Could not download module source code. Header shallow info. Let me look into that here and see. Okay, so I had to go to a 3.14.2 to rectify that error that I was getting. So maybe it might have just had something to do with that version of the Git repository. So I just pulled this one here. And then also you can see their source code here. So as you can see, the latest just was published today, September 2nd. So this one's been out for, looks like over a month. So yeah, now we'll use that. So now that we got that set up, let's do a Terraform plan. And I had a previous, in the previous video, I had a actual EC2 instance running, which you saw inside AWS. So that's actually going to show, let's see, unsupported argument on line 23. Yes, we did. I mean, lowercase c. And then, so like I was saying, I had a instance running, so we should see this actually look to destroy it, since it's no longer in our plan here. So let's see what kind of spits out here. So now these modules reference undeclared. So yeah, let's see what do we have. So that's why the plan is actually good to do, because sometimes these typos can fix things. So on outputs, line 8, EC2 instances. Okay, so on our outputs file, we have module EC2 instances, and that should be instance. All right, let's run it again. And another thing you can do, like I mentioned, should have done Terraform format. Make sure our formatting is good. And just fix all the formatting in here too, as you can see. So let's go Terraform plan again. And let's see what we get now. Hopefully there's no issues anywhere else, and we should be able to get the plan broken out into us. Oh, and then like I was mentioning, you can see on the left-hand side here the variables that were downloaded. So these variables are essentially what so this essentially, oh, we got another thing. So no module called, did you mean EC2 instance? Oh, is that what okay. I put, yeah, let me go back here. EC2 dash instance, and that should circumvent all of that there. I think module, let me double check here. Make sure that's the right module name for my instances here. Let's go up. Yeah, module EC2 dash. Okay, just making sure. So let's save that. And let's run the Terraform plan again. And we should be able to get our plan outputted now if we don't have any other mistakes. So like I was mentioning here on the left, these VPCs are essentially what we have in module. We got more errors. So it doesn't matter declared. This variable be clear with the variable. So let's see. Let's see what we got wrong here. So in our main.tf, no region. Okay, so I know why. So variables, let's just make a region real quick. So variable equals VPC underscore region. and then description, default VPC region. Type is going to be string. And then default is US East 2. All right, now let's do a Terraform. And you see, like the benefit of the plan is it's very intuitive and kind of showing you what's going on. So let's go back into our main.tf var.aws region. We shouldn't have any more errors. And input with, okay, let's on line 12. So line 12 region equals var.aws region. Yeah, so let's see, why are we got a provider block. And let's actually just, for this one, we're going to go ahead and just put USC's 2. No need to get too crazy on that one. Let's go ahead and take that variable out. Underscore region. Let's take that out. And let's try to run that again. Okay, so let's see what this brings us here. Okay, so we got our plan working, and now as we can see, this gives us a little warning about a deprecated resource there. And as you can see, we got 22 things to be added and 1 thing to be destroyed. And then we have our outputs. So we got our EC2 instance output, public IPs, and then VPC public subnets. And what we're going to do is we're going to hit apply on that. And then we already know what we want. So we want this, and this is good for a dev environment. So we're just going to do auto approve. If you don't do that, it just kind of makes you type yes at the end. It's like another extra safety measure. Go ahead and put that in there. And when the plan is rolling, we'll start to see these roll off down the screen here. Now this does take quite a bit because it'll need to create like a NAT gateway, subnets, VPC itself, 22 things. So it could take quite a bit. So I'll go ahead and speed this up here. Okay, so we got our instances, VPC created. Basically, we got our outputs here. So we got our public IP addresses, our subnet IDs. And if we go into AWS, well, now if we go into our EC2 console, we got our 2 instances running. We go to our VPC, USC's 2A, availability zone that they're in. And then we got our different subnets created. So we got our 2 subnets, A and B private. And we got our different route tables. Gets created from the module. Got an internet gateway created. Then we got our NAT gateway. And yeah, that's it. That's simple. So we'll go ahead and get into basically kind of going in through and destroying that, because that's really it. Like that's kind of simplifies, minimize that. So like I said, variables and modules help simplify your code. As you can see how clean this is. It's literally a couple lines. If you actually had to create all of this, you would need resource blocks every single word. So like if you were to go to Terraform and you go to AWS, right? Then we want to go to documentation. Well, we're going to need a VPC, right? So then we go into resources. Let's look for AWS VPC right here. So now you need to create a VPC. Then you need to add your arguments inside that. Well, then you need, arguments for your EC2 instance. So you go, EC2, you look for that. And you gotta, let's see if we can find that. So EC2 outputs, so do EC2 instance. Let's find the resource for that here. Let's just put an instance. AWS instance. So you got your instance, you create that, and then you're creating all of your arguments for that as well. So every single thing you need, internet gateway, subnets, security groups, all of the above. So with that, that's pretty simple there. If you have any questions in regards to the video today, got everything kind of all over the place here. So if you have any questions in regards to the video, anything about modules, variables, feel free to drop a comment below. In our next video, we'll go over some more Terraform examples of various code best practices and things like that. Again, thanks for tuning in. And like I said, hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe and share. And hope to see you next time.